There we are live.
I was getting into that song.
Yeah, catchy tune. It's a catchy tune. So I know there's a bit of a delay, so people won't necessarily catch this in the same time that we catch it, but maybe we can get a few extra people to join us because it would be really good considering the topic du jour that we are going to dig into, which is namely firing toxic clients. And, we have a special guest with us, my beautiful and one and only daughter.
Danielle. Hi, hello.
And John Butler's biggest fan. I'm John Butler's biggest fan, Rob Provencher. And, of course, Mr. John Butler himself. How you doing, John?
I'm doing very well. It's cold here. It's actually snowing pretty good here right now.
Same here. We're all getting it.
We were warned about 11 o'clock Eastern we were going to get a blizzard, and it's not a blizzard, but it's snowing. I know I'm going to be snow blowing tonight. So,
snow is snow is snow. Blizzardy, soft, windy, slow, hard, big flakes, little flakes. It all goes to the same place, on the ground. So how you doing, Danielle?
I'm doing great. Busy with lots of freelance projects. Really enjoying my 9 to 5.
Working full time.
I have my home office here, so everything's going well.
So the reason I invited Danielle on was because she's got a really cool story to share with us, and we're going to let her share that in the first part of this live stream. In case she's got to go, she's on the clock as far as she's working for her employer, largely working from home on and off. Are you going back in person soon? Do you know?
I go in every once a week to do some photography for them. As when I'm going in, it's really up in the air. I think every employer is kind of in that position to take it day by day.
You have an office there and a desk, and you were live there since you started there last August. So they locked down in December, and they sent you home to work. So I would assume they're going to bring you back.
Oh, yes. My boss really misses everyone being in office. I mean, the communication, it's not the same, right? Being able to just swing downstairs and talk to each other.
Yeah. Do you like working from home? I know some people do. I've talked to many people who just love it, but I don't think that that's the case with you.
Right now, at this point in my life, I love being around people. I thrive off collaboration and a social environment. But I would say I'm getting used to working alone. It does have its distractions. Definitely challenges your discipline. But I am keeping that in mind for when I do become my own boss.
Hopefully someday that'll happen. So you're a lot like your dad, I suppose. We got the same DNA. You're a people person. Whenever I talk to people and they're like, oh, I just love working at home in my pajamas, I'm like, oh, that would drive me nuts. But to each his own. So, John, I'm going to assume you're a people person too. You like working around people, getting out there, down and dirty in the trenches?
No, you know me. I'm an introvert. I like to hide away and not talk to anybody.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, I'm a total extrovert. That's why my wife and I get along, because she's the introvert and I'm the extrovert. She stays behind the scenes. So I'm the one that deals with everybody. So
yeah, well, you just described my wife too, and she's very much more reserved. Hey, Danielle, we're kind of like opposites. And now you often talked about, and I don't know if it's going to happen, I don't want to put anybody in a spot, but your boyfriend and yourself, you talked about maybe starting a mom and pop agency together or something. He seems to have the same disposition insofar as he is a not introvert, but opposite of you in many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that we've been playing around with for, I'd say about a year. We've been thinking about it. Yeah. He's very much the organized. We're both type A, but in different ways.
You're not organized?
Let's just say I'm more like you. I have my creative brain and big visionary aspect of me take over.
You could be a little bit like your dad. You could be La La Land. That's why I make lists. If I don't make lists, I descend into chaos and organizers and clocks, watches, schedule. I have to schedule the insanity and chaos.
And then we're naturally drawn to those partners that have that organizational skill, and you fill in the gaps for each other. So it really, I think starting a potential studio with him could be super exciting. And I think whenever I have the situation I'm going to talk about today, he was such a important pillar in that whole situation, because he's very objective and he really can take, okay, this is the entire situation, and break down the details and see what needs to be done, or it's very detail oriented that way.
So he's grounding.
Yeah, exactly.
And in a sense too, you said the key word objective. I think that's a valuable element and characteristic to bring to the games, because you can get so caught up, us creative types, we can get so caught up in our emotional and artistic visions, and we need somebody to come along and say, okay, whoa. Now, John, do you get that too with your wife? Does she bring that to the game? Does she help ground you? Something like, hey, John,
sometimes too much. Yeah, sometimes too much, because there's I have plans of stuff that I like to do, and I'm like, okay, we're going to do this year, we're going to do that, and she's like, well, for one thing, show me the money. She's the money person. So she's like, show me how you're going to pay for all this and how you're going to do it. I love it. And the other thing is, when I have projects that I want to do, that I just keep the creative juices going, because your clients are always wanting you the same thing. You got to do stuff for yourself and to keep that passion. And when I want to do that, I'll say, okay, I got to shoot next week, or I got to shoot tomorrow, and I'm doing this. Oh, are they paying for it? It's always that, are they going to pay for it? She's like, you can't keep doing stuff for free. So that's how she keeps me grounded. She makes sure I do the paying customers too.
Does she help too when, let's say, you're doing a pitch for a dance school or a hockey team or a sporting team or similar, and you're kind of like, oh, I really want this. It looks like it's a good moneymaker, and I love doing that kind of photography. And then you consult with her like I do with Tina. We always brainstorm.
We'll consult, but she's, like I said, stays behind the scenes the whole time. So she'll consult, and I'll say, okay, this is what we're like. Even now, we've been doing Pedawal minor hockey for, I want to say, about 10 years now, something like that anyways. And we've always we started off with this little teeny price list, and then it grew to a full page price list with more items on it. Now we just changed it this year altogether, because we're using a different company now doing right now we started this week actually 35 teams. Every night we're doing 2 or 3 teams at my studio here. We're here till 8 o'clock at night shooting individual kids, and then they're going to be compiled into a group shot. So because of that, we had to hire a company that compiles them together and makes that group shot for me, and it costs money to do that. So we had to sort of change our pricing a little bit to compensate for that, so I'm not losing. And we added some more products, so we're seeing how that goes. But yeah, we sit down and say, okay, this is what it's costing us. And I think what's helped us right now is the actual accounting software we started using, because you can actually, in our accounting software, put in what everything is costing me, my expenses, and then we can put what we're going to charge, and it gives us the profit margin and all that. So that makes it easier. So, but
she's there to, when I say consult, I mean one-on-one. I mean, you get together, and she brings her objective view to it. And of course, show me the money is a big one. It's exactly what the situation is with my wife. Yeah. Which keeps me centered probably more than anything. And
usually it's me coming up with this is what I want to offer. This is what I want to approach them with. And then she will then look at the idea after that and say, yeah, that looks good. Or maybe, what if we added this? Or what if we take that away? That wasn't a big seller. Like we'll consult like that. But 9 times out of 10, she's usually pretty good at whatever idea I have. She goes with it, because it's my name on if anything goes wrong, they're coming after me, not her. So
yeah. I ain't taking blame. So back to Danielle. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to share your story in a minute so that we can get on to the topic at hand. But I'm, if you ever get into business with your partner, your life partner, I think it's important to recognize, I think it's ideal in so many ways for a couple to be in business together when they both bring opposite characteristics, and it's a balancing act. So it's important to be aware of this stuff. I think it's valuable information. So something for you to consider. And he helps you out. So Chris is there. He's very grounding for you in that respect. So But anyways, you mentioned that Chris helped you with your big situation about 10 days ago. And this is what we're talking about, how to fire a toxic client and why you should and when you should, and what are things that we can do to prevent toxic clients. So I got a lot to say about it, but I want you, Danielle, to tell us your story and how it sort of evolved in the, eventually you ended up letting them go. And exactly. It was a nice gig. It was almost $3,000. So what happened? Let's go to square one and give us the short version, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. So in early December, I had 2 clients contact me who were about my age. They seemed really ambitious. They were really passionate about starting a candle company. The first thing that my dad noticed right away was that they didn't have a legitimate product and they didn't have a legitimate business in place yet.
It was just an idea.
Exactly. So that is something that completely went over my head right away. But my dad Rob noticed right away that, hey, there's a kind of a red flag right there. They don't have a legitimate, they're kind of in the clouds, right? They're dreaming. Me being young and idealist, I'm like, oh, they're so passionate. They're so excited. I really resonated with them. So I decided to take on the project. Now, everything was going awesome. It seemed like the most ideal dream project because I've always wanted to do a packaging project. Candles as a graphic designer is really neat. You get to be super creative with the packaging. So how it started going downhill was my first step in the process is to create a strategy and an initial mood board. And if you're not familiar with a mood board, that's basically a set of images that represent the tone, the brand values, and really the essence of where the brand is going to go.
That's very preliminary, right?
Exactly. That's probably the first step after their brief, their questionnaire that they submit describing what they're looking for.
Okay. I just want to mention something. You didn't mention it either. When you first they were referred to you, you had an actual meeting with them on Zoom, right? So you had a long initial discussion. That's how you got to meet them. They're from out of town. And that was the first step of this process, just so people understand, because your process is a little bit different than what we do for photographers and whatnot. So you can literally work with people around the globe. We get people to come in the studio and we talk about our work we're going to do with them and whatnot. But so yours is much more customizable, and its branding is very big. It encompasses a large area, and then you have to sort of refine that creation for them, right? Is that sort of a good way to say it? Describe it?
Yeah, essentially I start with a brand strategy call, exactly what you said, to make sure that we're on the same page in terms of their values, but also the visual direction. And where I could see that being an overlap with photographers is, that initial consultation, even email dialogue, discussing, okay, this is the type of we want on location, off location, the whole vibe of the direction. So I could see that there being an overlap there for sure.
So when you did that, you said, okay, I'll get back to you. And then you pitched them your proposal, which involves your fee. So you said to them in your proposal, I'm going to do this, 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 and this, and here's what it's going to cost. That's step 2?
Step 2 involved, I sent them the invoice, and then directly after I sent them the mood board, which described the strategy.
They paid a deposit on that, $800, I think it was.
$875, yeah.
Okay, so the whole quote was for logos, branding, packaging, website, yada yada yada.
Mm-hmm. The whole branding and website, exactly.
Okay, and then from the quote, the $875 was a deposit.
Exactly, it was a 3 installment. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so people are clear on the experience, which is pretty typical, and that's the way I can't see it going any other way. You're strategic, step by step, and you get a deposit. And just to sort of mention this, and it might have come up as a discussion with you, me, and your mom, where we sort of like really pushed the idea, get a deposit. Nobody gets on the ride until they have a ticket and they pay some money. So this is so important.
Exactly.
But anyways, okay, then what happened?
So after we agreed on the strategy and initial mood board, I worked about 3 days straight. I probably put in 30 to 40 hours within 3 days of just pure strategic copywriting, as well as the logo, the typography system. And when I presented it to them that weekend, they were over the moon. Pardon?
There was colors in there too?
Yeah, everything that goes into the brand, the colors, the type, all the logos, it was all in there. And when we had this presentation on Sunday and I presented it to them, they were over the moon. They were so delighted, and they had no complaints with the strategy, with the work given to them. So it was really odd because for about 3 days, it was just completely silent on their end. And then they sent me about a very long email, and they said I had missed the direction completely, and that they wanted to change directions completely, and that I had missed that original vision. So that was a red flag to me, because I think a client, photography or graphic design wise, needs to have at least a general vision of what they want, right? Like they don't need to they're not the artist. They don't need to know pinpoint exactly what they want, but they need to have that, okay, these are the adjectives that will describe it. And in their case, they had given me a direction we had agreed upon, and then they turned around and said that it was completely wrong. So I knew in that case it wasn't necessarily my fault, and it kind of struck as a red flag to me. So I was completely okay with redesigning their vision, but I told them we'd have to revisit the budget, because
the budget.
This is a whole redesign, right? It's like a new photo shoot. It's a new complete strategy. So after that, they sent me a couple of emails explaining how they just wanted a couple of tweaks. They just wanted this changed, but really what they wanted was a complete overhaul, and they were just trying to get out of paying for it. That was the second red flag. And once I actually came to a compromise with them and did a whole redesign for basically nothing, which was that was partially my fault. They, for a third time, they said they wanted to completely change everything again. And
was that when you showed them the packaging?
Yes, after that I redesigned. Yeah.
But did they not go through the same scenario where they loved it at first, then they hated it?
They did that twice to me.
Yeah. Okay. Just want to be clear on that.
So at that point, I felt a little mistreated as the expert. I felt we were going in endless loops, and I didn't think I was ever going to make them happy. And that was prior to even starting a website with them. This is just the logo. So the main lesson I really learned is to communicate with your clients and make sure they understand that they have to have a clear vision of what they want. It goes both ways, I believe. And the second big red flag is, Dad, you taught me that you have to have in the graphic design world, your client has to have a set business or a set product, and they have to kind of know what they are looking for before working with them. Well,
not necessarily. Let me say this, if I can clarify where I'm coming from in that respect. I kept saying the word amateurs. They're amateurs. They've never been in business before. They don't have a business, and they want a business, so they're really leaning on you to sort of create this business for them. So there are many, many, many examples of people who start a business. They're very experienced in business, and they come up with the brand, the logo, and everything because they're professionals. They know how to run a business, and they know and value the importance of a good logo, good design, good branding, colors, and all that stuff. and they get through that process with somebody like yourself pretty smoothly because they have clarity. These people did not have clarity. And I'm not faulting them or judging them or blaming them. I mean, somebody could easily put the responsibility on your shoulders for accepting them in the first place, but it is what it is. So I told you, and I want you to tell us how you came to the decision to let them go. And because we haven't talked about that yet, but I told you because I knew it was going to hurt you bad. I knew it, but I also knew you got to let shit like that go. You just got to slice them off and let it go. Never bring it up again. And what was the term I used? Tuition. It's tuition. You just paid a tuition fee. So anyways, tell us what happened next. How you got to the point where you decided you made the decision, I can't do this anymore. And I think your big fear that was really leveraging for you was you told me this anyways, you were very fearful. I mean, if it's as bad as it is now, imagine how bad it's going to be when I start doing the website, which is a big project. Tell us about that.
Yeah, for sure. I was definitely fearful. I think as artists and creatives, I know for me, I can say we get very attached to our work. And when there's a client involved in critiquing coming in play, it's really hard. I was fearful essentially of failing, right, by firing a client. But what I learned is that sometimes cutting our losses is really a gain in the end because you're saving yourself and your morale. And so I was definitely really fearful of just ending things with them. And it was such a relief. The turning point was realizing I was being mistreated completely as the expert. We were going in endless loops, and at the end, I was really confirmed that I wasn't being treated as the creative expert because when I initially emailed them saying, you know what, this isn't going to work out because I don't feel my expertise was trusted from the beginning, they sent a very brief, almost impolite email, and I don't think they valued me from the beginning. So I trusted my intuition on that. And sometimes you just have to cut your losses for the gain, really.
And let it go. So you gave them their money back, which must have hurt because in your position, just starting out, it's nice to have that cash flow coming in.
Yeah, it was surprising that they asked for it back, and it was a huge learning lesson to always keep a business account running to keep those funds until the project is completed. You never know what's going to happen. That was a big lesson for me. So
listen, no regrets. You're glad it's behind you?
I am, yes. I completely have my morale back. I have some awesome projects coming up, and it's already going so much more smoother with these new clients, and it's more reaffirming that sometimes it just doesn't work with a client, but sometimes it just is a toxic situation. So my big lesson is if red flags appear, you can keep a couple of them tabled, but if they do keep reappearing, don't ignore them because your value as an artist and as a business owner is worth more than the pain of going through what a toxic client can do to you.
Well, I'm kind of glad you went through it because I was thinking to myself, that's a wonderful experience to really help temper your disposition, your outlook, and it'll build a good foundation for down the road. Because I think a large part of avoiding this kind of a situation and picking good clients preemptively is a big part of where you end up in business. And you can't get there unless you get burned a few times and until life hammers you down a bit and makes you a little more humble. So, John, you know what it's like when you get rejected or in similar situations, what happened, as an artist, you're kind of like, everything just kind of blows up and you really have a hard time not taking it personal. So
definitely.
You know what we're talking about.
I've never actually had to fire one, but I've come close a couple times, especially when I was shooting weddings. I had a client that were in a bind, and they thought their parents had already booked a photographer for their wedding, and they didn't. And it was getting like a month before the wedding, and just happened that whole summer I was booked solid, and it just happened the weekend they were getting married I was available. So they came, did the whole presentation, like, yeah, we'll take this package. And I said, okay, this is how much the deposit is. And then at that time it was like a $500 deposit, and then whatever the balance remaining, it was split into two. 30 days before your wedding was, or 2 weeks before your wedding was, first payment was due, and then within 30 days after your wedding, before you get anything from me, you had to have the balance done. Well, it was getting to be about a week before, and I still hadn't got his deposit even. And this guy was a vendor too, an actual wedding vendor, so he knew what it was like. Finally, I said, well, your wedding's next Saturday, and it's Friday before right now, so if I don't have you here by tomorrow or Sunday at the latest to make your deposit and your first payment that's already due, I can't do your wedding. And he was at my door that within half an hour with his gold card saying, I told you I was going to pay you. But so sometimes you just have to be firm and just let it out. And it's, if, like you said, red flags. As soon as you see these flags going up, you got to take care of them right away, or they just fester.
Yeah, I think the magic words are you got to take care of them. You got to manage.
Yeah. What happens is if you don't take care of them right away and they get away with it, and you let them go, the next time they're going to say, oh, well, she let me do this last time, so maybe I could push her again this time a little bit further. So
yeah. So
I also learned the value of putting in good systems in place to weed out those clients. So some strategies I found out about was being transparent with your prices on your website. People may disagree with that. I personally like that idea because or having a form, what's your budget? What's your price range? Having those filters. So, someone realizes you're completely out of their budget range and could potentially be a toxic client. They'll just be weeded out from the get-go.
So, John, did that wedding turn out okay after he paid? And it
actually turned out really well, but at the time, the only thing I didn't get out of it was I wasn't able to show any pictures from the wedding, because at that time I had a clause in there, my copyright thing saying I can use the images, I have the copyright, and he wanted me to change it to I can't use any for samples because there was going to be some important people there that didn't want their pictures out.
Well, that's a separate issue, though, really.
Yeah, so that was the only thing. But other than that, I don't know. I've sort of stayed clear from him because, like I said, he wants everything for free, and he wants this, and he wants you to do that, and that was a big red flag right there. And so I've never actually, we see each other every now and then, say hello, but I've never done business with him again. So,
to me, Danielle, the big red flag for your situation was that they don't actually have a business. So, they didn't have a product; they just had a dream. So, and they both worked full time as in other fields.
They're nurses. And I found this interesting. I became a little bit of their business coach too.
Yeah.
They were leaning on me for answers, which I was happy to provide with, but it became, I was exerting myself a lot more than.
So I just want to put this out there. I want to make a few comments, but while I'm doing that, Danielle, is there any way you can show us the image? Maybe if you want to, you don't have to. Like, say, for example, one or two of the images you create of the packaging, which will show the logo and all that, and we could show everybody how nice a job you had done for them. Are you willing to do that? And if so, if you can go dig those up, and we'll show your screen in a minute, but I just want to make a few comments while you're doing that so we can multitask here. So,
and before you say that, Rob, I have a comment too. Another red flag just before you get in there is now that she's first starting out, one thing that she's going to get a lot probably, and she probably already has, is these people saying, oh, if you can do this for me, I can't really pay you much now, but you'll get all the publicity and the recognition. And you can't pay your bills with all that. So that was just another thing you got to watch for too.
I read this on Facebook yesterday regarding musicians, because one guy was saying hiring my 5-piece band to go at your wedding and the price was whatever, $2,000, and the other person complained, what, $2,000 for music? And I think the reply was, well, look, you try and get 5 unionized plumbers out to work 6 hours on a Saturday, and whatever they quote you, I'll be happy. We'll settle at half. So musicians have to deal with this all the time, and Joe, the sax player down in Tamarindo, Danielle, he told me something. He says, I don't chase gigs. He told me that. And that's a good key too. And I've noticed that back in the 80s, the one and only time I actually chased a wedding client, she turned out to be super, super high maintenance, and I had instant regrets. So if you look too hungry, it's not a good sign. So I just made some notes. I want to go through them really quick. I put down here, don't be a pushover. So don't be easy, and don't be too easy to please. There's a lot of power in saying no and being assertive. So if we're young and if we're idealistic, we tend to think that being nice and just always being pleasant is the way to go, but it's not. People want direction, and they want you to be firm. So there's that. And I put down here too, price. The more, it's funny, this has happened a million times and in a million industries, and there's probably a million examples. And I remember I did this back around 1999. I literally doubled my wedding prices, and we got busier than ever, like crazy busy.
I did that with my headshots.
Yeah, and it worked, right?
Yep.
So, and I put down here too, barrier to entry. So make it a little bit challenging for them to get to you. And that obviously includes deposits and payments and having a high price or a respectable price. And, don't make it so easy that your door's open, they can just barge in anytime. And I mean that metaphorically. And I put down here commitment and communication. Obviously, that's very, very important. You get a commitment from them through payment and through clear communication as to the direction you want to go. They might come along for the journey kicking and screaming, but they're going to come along. And I've always said this when I quote my prices, my wedding prices especially, I want it to sting just a little bit. So they're like, ooh, it's a little more than we anticipated. And I always envisioned them going home. I said, well, think about it. Give it a couple of days. And I envisioned them going home, sitting at the kitchen table, mom and dad around. They're like, oh, I really like that photographer, but he's beyond our budget. And they figure out a way to make it happen. And then the bride calls back and says, okay, we're going to book. Because that process, time-wise, has happened a million times to me.
Definitely.
But if you give in...
No,
right?
Definitely. Yep, if you give in.
I'll give you a lower price, then your budget, it's less, it's more than you anticipated. Well,
We've talked about this too, because this has been, I think, it's not the creative process necessarily. It's not my skills or talent. It's my mindset that I'm really struggling with. And maybe it's because I'm young. I struggle with really accepting my value as a creative. And I think we have all struggled with that to a certain degree. And Dad, we had talked about this before, which is people can sense if you're confident and your value, right? Like it comes in the way that you talk and your presence. And I think mindset is a really big key. Just knowing that all the hours, your experience and your skills are worth doubling your prices or tripling your prices. So yeah,
it's a leap of faith, but you'll know when it's time to go there. And when you do that, you're always a little bit, because it's new ground, it's a new area. And that's part of the game. I mean, the alternative is go work for someone else. I mean, that's boring to me.
No. And another thing, I think I learned this from either Sue Bryce or even Marie or somebody, is if you ever do something for somebody where you are giving them some sort of a discount for any reason, no matter what it is, whether it be even a family member, if you're just shooting your dad's portrait and you want to do it for him for free because he's your dad, always still make an invoice for them of the cost of what you're doing, and then have a discount in there, and then have a reason why you're giving a discount in there, and give them an invoice, even if it's a zero balance, just so they know what that actually costs, and if somebody was to come in and hire you for that, so they know the value that they're getting. Plus, if anybody asks them, hey, that was a great shot, or that was a great logo, where'd you get that from, and how much did it cost you? They have that of what it cost. Even though you gave it to them for free, you still gave them, hey, this is the value you're getting. That's goes
very
a long
important.
way.
That's a great idea.
That's very important. And if you do it on a nice letterhead, very professional looking.
Yeah.
it's
still give them an invoice, even if you're doing for free. Give them an invoice. This is how much a logo design costs, minus 100% or minus, if it was $200, say minus $200, and in a little note there, just put client discount as agreed or something. So at least they know what it would normally cost them if they didn't get that discount.
Yeah.
Show value. Always show the value. Show that you feel that you have value.
Yeah.
So
it'll help.
I get everybody all the time. They want the digital file, and on a family portrait, if they want to buy one file, it's $75 in my studio for that one file. But they're like, well, how come you charge $75? I could take it to Walmart and print it for $3. I'm like, yeah, but for one thing, I'm not Walmart. You're not having this shot unless you pay for it. It's all my artwork. You got to show that you, and be confident about it. So when those customers, like you said, when they were giving you those red flags and that, and you have to fire them, be confident when you do fire them. Don't be like, well, I don't think we're a good match. Just be confident. Say, listen, it's not working out. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen. Maybe I could recommend this person to you, or maybe you might need to go somewhere else, but I don't think it's going to work. Just be very confident about it, and it shows more professional than if you're just umming and hawing type of thing.
So Danielle, you consulted. There's one thing that you do that I find really amazing is you talk to a lot of other well-established graphic designers that you've met through Instagram and whatever. You've shared this story with a few of them, and they've helped you along, haven't they?
Yeah, I've been complimented on my work. Like, I'm very approachable on social media, and I think that's the point of social media, is to be social. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. And I just find Instagram right now a really positive community to reach out to people who have great influence or small influence. And I'll, as they say, drop into people's DMs if I feel inspired. I don't force it, but for example, there's an amazing graphic designer who, he's an entrepreneur. He runs a content, he dropped his corporate job to start content creation. His goal is to create, I think it's like, I don't know, he wants to create thousands of YouTube videos to educate people on the business of the creative art and graphic design. His name is Chris Doe, and I just felt inspired one day to reach out to him to tell him, hey, I am interested in starting my own studio one day. Do you have any advice? And you know, I just wanted to connect with him, and he responded. This guy has over 500,000 followers, I think. And nice. Anyways, I'm always doing that, and I learned from you, Dad, that your network is your net worth. I have it written on my laptop right
nice.
Here. But I have this note too: schedule a call with a designer entrepreneur every month, or email an entrepreneur every week. Because I've learned so much from putting myself out there on the line and asking people these questions. People are willing to help, and it's been really fun.
That's pretty good. That's a very smart maneuver. So wasn't there a lady designer, I think front porch design or something like that? Did you not have a call with her about this particular issue as well?
I chatted with her through Instagram on the voice notes.
Right.
Yeah, the first thing she told me was, it seems like you're not being treated as the expert in this situation. And she encouraged me to try to come to a compromise and explain to them where my stance was, and to see if we could compromise some smaller changes, maybe just like the typography changes or the colors change. And but she said it was a very frustrating situation, and she's been in a similar situation before.
Yeah, well, we go through it. We all go through it.
Yeah, but it's good that, because you can have a business mentor, I guess, like your dad who runs a business, or myself, or anybody. But it's nice to have somebody in your field that you can bounce things off of too, because they've been there, like you said. She's been there before, so. Yeah,
it's true. She's definitely a mentor to me, and I'm really happy. It's been a great relationship. Just that's been purely built through Instagram. I just reached out to her and asked her for some tips as an aspiring studio owner. And we had a couple Zoom calls, and she's been really, really some people are just awesome and really willing to help, especially if you're aspiring and you're nice and you're passionate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Rob's out then.
Oh,
John Rumble is with us. Finally, we get a comment. And yay!
Yeah, he says another valuable resource to access mentors and get advice is Clubhouse.
Yeah,
I listen, John. Thank you for the invitation. I listened to my first Clubhouse chat this morning. It was like listening to a conference. I felt like I was in a conference hall with 500 people, and I felt that excitement because you knew it was live and people were listening. And there's a little feature to raise your hand and ask questions. So I know Gary Vaynerchuk is talking about this being the new up and coming social media app, but I think it has a really inclusive, communal kind of feel, and it's going to be an amazing way to spread information, I think.
I heard of it. I haven't checked it out yet.
Me neither. I've never even heard of it.
There you go. We'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's like an audio conference app. It's really interesting.
It's cool. I'll check it out. I'll sign up as soon as we're done this live stream. So let me tell you, I believe I only fired a client once. That may have happened a couple times, but there's one time in particular. Excuse me, I got a real itchy throat. It's that damn COVID.
Hey, you want some water?
Thank you. I should have brought myself some water. I think it was around 12 years ago or 10 years ago. We booked a client. She was from out of town for a wedding, and we did our engagement session. Now, my wife called me one day, and she said, "This lady is driving me nuts. I don't think we should. Do our wedding." Now, I'm of the belief that you really have to go to bat for your wife, your spouse. You have to really support them, and whether or not she's overreacting but at the time it didn't matter. It was like, this is the way she feels about this client. I said, "Do you want me to cut all ties and give her her money back?" And she said, "Yes." So, okay, what's her number? And I hung up the phone. I picked up the phone. I called her right away, and I ended it. So I just did it. I didn't think about it. I felt very focused. I didn't want to do it. It's like, This is an ugly experience. But I knew in my mind I had to do it. I had to support my wife, and I had to do what I felt at the time was the right decision. And I called her and I said, "I'm sorry, it's not going to work out. We're going to send you your money back. I do apologize for any inconvenience." And she talked a little bit. She started crying, and I felt bad, but it is what it is. And you just got to be decisive in these things, and it doesn't happen that often. I mean, I can't think of any other times that I've wanted or actually fired a client, but it can happen, especially in weddings. And I did have one time around the same period, probably more closer to 8 years, a commercial client. One thing I don't like is I don't like working for ad agencies. I find there's a lot of BS. They're overpriced, and they tend to. If you talk to any old school advertising agent, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of nonsense and a lot of stuff is overinflated. So somebody came in from like 2,200 miles away. The agency was 500 miles away, and it was just the first red flag was, we're going to do a conference call, and they did a conference call on the phone. I said, "Well, why are we not using the GoToWebinar?" This was pre-Zoom days.
Yep.
And it was loud and echoey, and it's like they put the phone on the middle of their table, and they were all trying to act like big shots. And I was just like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, you guys don't fool me on this one." But it was a legit shoot, and it paid a lot of money because they had a big corporate account with this client of theirs. So they flew somebody in from literally 2,200 miles away. This was the account manager. And it was complete nonsense. Like, what could have been a 20-minute shoot went to 4 or 5 hours, and it drove me batty.
Yeah.
I almost dropped the camera and said, I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. I was that close. I bit because there was so much bullshit. So much bullshit. And I know. I know a few old school from the 80s advertising executives, and if they're honest, they'll tell you that happens quite a bit. And
I've done it with when I was in the magazine industry. There was a couple times I was shooting for one of the main supplement companies.
Right.
And we're in the middle of a shoot that's the day after a bodybuilding competition. So these guys are depleted with energy because they've just drained themselves to make that muscle just pop out. So they're already tired as it is, and we're halfway through the shoot, and they're lifting heavy. That's because it's workout shots for this company.
Right.
And the guys, they just kept saying, well, you got to look like you're tired. Look like you're tired. And I'm like, I'm shooting these pictures. He looks tired. And they just kept pushing me and pushing them. And it's like, I was ready to say, you know what? That's it. Like, I'm going home now. This guy's going to be dead in a second if you keep it up.
It's like they feel if they demand for more, they're going to get that little extra magic.
Yeah.
But in reality, you've achieved that already.
Yeah.
But I think they got to kind of justify their jobs, their positions.
Yeah.
That's the sense that I felt. I came all this way. I'm the account manager, which was a completely unnecessary move because the shoots were so simple.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was the other time I almost dropped the camera and said, enough of this. So Danielle, I'm glad you showed up with us and shared your story. So,
did she find any pictures to show us?
I have a couple. I can show the mood board and then the final result of what All
right, let's do it.
I'll see it come on my side in a second here.
Danielle's a 2-screen girl.
Eventually I would be too, but.
Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yep.
Great. So this was one of the first mood boards. I had presented 3 variations. I usually do at least 2 to 3 just to give them some options of potential solutions.
Yeah.
Now, what you're seeing is really some packaging here that represents a very fun, bright, kind of feminine nature, you can tell. We wanted it to be really colorful, really summery. So you can see kind of all those elements sort of playing through in this mood board. So what I'm going to show you next is kind of teaser images of the logo that I had created for them. So this was an icon that was going to be used in the main logo, but I stripped apart that icon just to kind of, it could be like a teaser image on Instagram saying up and coming, what this is, but we're not giving away the full logo just yet. Very much like a romantic kind of romantic, but still fun and uplifting sort of vibe. This was a secondary logo, which I kind of drew inspiration from Latin. So this is the Latin goddess who represents wisdom, since their business name is called Ex Animo, which is Latin for from the heart. This is the full, I'll show this is the full logo here. So their tagline was Latin-inspired luxury, and nice, clean, elegant type. And yeah, what they told me was that the logo ended up being too luxurious for them, which they told me that's what they wanted from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I was really happy because it was really a full suite, right? They had their icon and so.
I think it was fantastic.
What about or are you done yet? I know you got packaging. Yes,
let me grab that.
Is Danielle a Mac girl or a PC girl?
She's a Mac girl. She broke from the family tradition.
So the packaging would have been really feminine and colorful, and you can see a girl in their mid-20s buying this, right? It's really eye-catching for a candle. And they told me it was too quirky, too elegant, and I had missed the vision. So
to me, that's very eye-catching, and you walk in the store, your eye will go right to that. That's what you would want.
Exactly, yeah. But they told me that these colors, this gradient style, was too youthful. So, yeah.
It almost sounds to me like it was a client that kind of had an idea, but they didn't really know what they want, and they're waiting for you to throw stuff at them and say, "Yeah, maybe, but," until something
Bingo.
hit them.
Bingo.
That's exactly what happened. And then we ended up simplifying the logo here. This is what they wanted for the second variation. So I put all the time into the a new type of package, a little bit more simple. You can see the new logo there and playing more with illustrations. And then they weren't happy with this variation either.
And you knew that that was the road they were going to bring you down.
I knew by the second time, or sorry, the third time they wanted a variation, I knew it was just going to be a nightmare if I were to continue it.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Thanks for sharing that. So I'm not sure we discussed this, but did you let them know that you have complete ownership of all that stuff? They are not allowed to use any of it because you basically refunded them their money. And
Yes, I did. I let them know I have full ownership and over the copywriting and the strategy too. So that means they can't use any of my writing because I put a lot of work into their branding strategy. Right? It's not just the logo; it's the strategy behind the logo.
Definitely.
cool. All right.
Time is money.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And
Definitely.
Thank you so much for having me on, guys. I really, really appreciate it.
you got to go?
I'll keep listening from the other end. I'll drop some comments.
We're almost done anyway, so but it's up to you.
She was definitely the rose between the two thorns here, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll stay on till the end.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap up soon anyways. So what do you think, John?
Yeah, I think it's almost gone for a whole hour. Oh, I'm just stretching here a little bit. There we go. No, I think it was good. I think there was a lot of good information because I bet you there's a lot of people out there, especially just starting, that they go through a lot of stuff Danielle was going through and they don't know what to do about it. They don't really have anybody to talk to and they're afraid, like you said, to fire because they're afraid, I think, more of the stigma they might have around town. Oh, don't go to them because if you don't exactly agree to everything they want, they're just going to fire you as a client. But you got to get that out of your head because for every bad one, you're going to have 10 or 15 awesome ones.
There's that old saying: the customer is always right. Well, no,
Exactly.
not always.
No.
Sometimes they can be completely irrational.
Yeah.
And you got to know when to pull the plug and say it's time to move on.
Yeah.
It's just a fact of life. So
I think that goes with learning to manage the client too, or learning to attract those dream clients. Really.
I think when you have a good brand, which to me is more than just having the visuals, the logo, and everything else that goes with it, I think a brand encompasses a lot of publicity, and publicity starts at the word of mouth level. When that starts to become the foundation of your business, and that typically takes 2 to 3 years to establish, and that's after a lot of work. Once you establish that, you really put yourself in a good position in order to attract quality clients, and assuming you're going to keep doing everything right and not get lazy and or not start slacking off with any of your processes, because the processes are what helps tie everything together.
Yeah, I think that's really important. An important point is people think the brand is the visuals, but you have to step out from behind the logo and be not only be authentic, but uphold your values. So remember how you carry yourself at home and how you carry yourself in business. It's all your brand. That's my belief, and it doesn't mean you have to be fake or put on a show. It just means upholding to your personal brand values, and that goes. Yeah, it's an experience, and I think a lot of creatives forget that it is so much more than just that logo and that even just the process. It's who you are.
Well, when you're set up as a business, I mean, your brand, your logo that you create and that you've created for yourself is just a representation. Everything else takes on a much, much deeper meaning. Dan Kennedy used to say all the time, never let them see you blink when you quote your price. So, you got to quote your price and just zip it and don't get all nervous. But this book here, one of the best books on this topic, The Fall of Advertising and the Rise of PR. You can tell it's been well worn.
Yeah.
This book just blew me away, and it really gets into the crux of what branding is all about.
A lot of it is also managing expectations right from the start with the client, and that takes time too, because it took me a while, and over in the last 3-4 years, I'm really getting better at. Once that first contact with that client, it's a matter of right there setting the expectations right from the start. This is what I can do for you. This is what it'll cost. This is the process it's going to be, so that there's no whammies along the way. Just set those expectations right from the front so they know exactly what's going on. And it takes a while. I mean, nobody's going to get it right from the start. It's taken me a long time. So
yeah, well, you're slow.
I know. Well, when I had hair, it was blonde. So well, let's wrap it up. And I know last week we didn't have a photo buzz because I was going through travel hell last week. And but I did put a replay that John and I had done last summer from inside the forum. And so I thought I'm going to put a replay in the Facebook group. So we like to do these every week. And if we can't, I'll put something in there. And I got lots more content that I'm going to add in the Facebook group. I'm literally planning on taking the vast majority of the content from within the forum and bringing it over to Facebook just to make it available to everybody. Yeah.
And go more on a volunteer payment Patreon model. That's my goal. But, there was something else I was going to say about that. But thanks, Danielle, for joining us. Next week, we got another photo buzz on Wednesday. I'm glad you stayed through the whole hour. Danielle, I told you, I said you can only tell your story in 15 minutes and leave because I know you're on the clock and you got to get back to work. But you have a lot more flexibility, so you can work.
I think he just didn't want you showing up, Dad. That's all.
She's getting there.
Working my way.
So any final? Oh, John Rumball says, "Great buzz. Thanks, John. I'm glad you showed up, and I'm glad you got some value from what it is we're trying to
exactly
here."
Definitely. And I know earlier on we had like Neil Copeland was on at one time and Craig Popoff was on. So we had, and Donna, I think Conde, she was on. So we had a lot of people watching, but people will see the replay.
Yep. So we hope to grow it as we grow it and go from there. So,
yep.
So John, you're going to let me know about Fairy Day. We're doing Fairy Day, hopefully in your neck of the woods in July. My wife and I were looking at our schedule today. Actually,
as long as we don't go through no third wave and they lock us all down again.
Well, it could happen. It could happen.
I don't think so.
But I say we were looking at the calendar. Truth be told, I was enjoying myself doing something, and my wife said, "We need to look at the calendar now." Now, sit down and look at the calendar.
Yeah.
That she's the manager, right? So I said, "All right, let's do it." And we sit down and we look at every month by month by month, and we have a 6-month plan. Right through to September. And we're like, okay, when is the best time to go to John's neck of the woods and do the Fairy Day like we did last year? And we determined July was the best month. So John's going to get back to me on that.
And you'll bring another TV screen with you, I'm sure.
Yeah. What happened to our last one?
You broke it. Yeah, you don't know how, but you broke the screen somehow before you got here.
In transit. It happened in the car. When we go, we bring 2 cars. We got to get a minivan. We were supposed to buy one last year, but damn COVID. But we pack everything inside 2 cars. We just pack it to the rafters, as you know. So
yeah. Well,
all right.
No, we're ready for you. So thanks, Danielle. I appreciate it. I learned a lot from what you were talking about. So.
Oh, thanks, and thanks for your input too. It was really valuable.
Well, you might be here to learn from us, but we learn a lot from you young ones too, because times change and we're never stop learning. So
yeah, you got to be open. School is never out.
Nope.
Well, maybe we can continue our chat next time in Clubhouse. We can have a conference group.
Check it out.
All right.
We're good to go. Thanks a lot.
We're good to go.
thanks a lot, John, for doing everything, and
Yeah.
we'll be in touch.
Check everybody later.
Have
Bye-bye.
a great day.